Hey everybody, thanks again for joining us on another episode of the Bullseye Hiring Hangout. To start off with, we're always joined by Kathleen Metcalf, who will be our host from Bullseye Hiring, and we've got a great guest, Jolene McDonough, today, who's going to share some information with us. Kathleen, why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about what we are going to cover and introduce them to Jolene?
I will. Thank you, Scott. So I'm Kathleen Metcalf, the founder of Bullseye Hiring and a hiring and retention consultant. Jolene McDonough is our guest today. She's also the founder and a consultant of her own business, System Success, and we work together in Bullseye Hiring, helping real estate teams hire and retain their administrative staff. So we have found that in talking with teams over the last couple of years, there's a particular topic that has lots of information that we wanted to pass on to you, which is to grow your team, we need you to grow yourself, and all of the pieces that come together to make that a success. So Jolene, welcome to the Bullseye Hiring Hangout. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for all the information you're going to share with us.
Great. Well, thank you, and I appreciate being here, both Scott and Kathleen. It's always a pleasure to do these. You know, like you said, there is a part of the conversation of when we go to hire, help people hire, help top producers hire around the country. There's a common misconception about, well, I'm just going to go hire somebody, and then that's the magic bullet. Well, unfortunately, there's some things that come along with raising your hand and saying, I'm going to hire somebody. And so those are some of the things that we're going to talk about today. And one of those is, you know, what are some of the resources we need to provide so that they can be successful and that we can be successful? And what about delegation? How do I delegate? How do I delegate differently now as a leader? And also, how do I engage my team so that we have a great team commitment together? Because it's not just you anymore. You are now a leader of a team. And so we're going to bring up some topics today about, you know, what some of those things are that you have to pay attention to now that it's more than just you. It's a we. You know, instead of the I, it's a we. So some of the things change. So that's what we'd like to cover today. I'll just throw the first thing out, and that's number one is, you know, as a leader, as somebody who's hiring an assistant, what happens is the paradigm shift from I to we. You have to pay attention to some other things. It's kind of like going from 5 transactions to 20 transactions. There's different dynamics that are going on, different organizational structures behind the scenes that are happening. And so as a leader, you have to pay attention to the organization, not just going out and making it rain. So all of your capacities have to grow as well. So like the title of the title of our hangout is, you know, grow your team, grow yourself. You will need to increase your capacities. One of those capacities is about resources. Most people think just hire an assistant, they'll show up, and poof, magic happens. I can increase my business by twofold, right? Just by having this person. But there's things that happen along the way. One is, what about the resources that you're providing? It sounds like a very basic thing, but what about the space that you're going to give them? What about the tools that you're going to give them? What about the automation and the training and the things that you need to provide for them so that they get the best possible chance to succeed at doing their best for you? Because I guarantee you, when you hire that person, they're going to want to really do the best. But if they don't have sufficient tools and sufficient structure for them to succeed, it's not going to work. So I'm going to throw out a couple, and then Kathleen, I know that you and I work together, and we've heard different things around, so feel free to jump in about some that you've heard too. First of all, number one is the resources is, what about their space? Do they have a desk? Do they have a desk that's sufficient so that they're not cramped and having their files all over them or things hanging over their head, file cabinets over their head, excuse me? Or what about, are they in a closet kind of thing? I mean, I hate to say this, but the first escrow officer that we hired, literally, she was in a storeroom. It wasn't a storeroom. It's the only place we had for her, but we had to move her out as soon as we could. I think she still remembers that. It's horrible. But we moved her out as soon as we could because it's not conducive for success. The other thing is automation. Do they have a system that they're working on, maybe with a dual monitor that has the speed sufficient to be running, or are they having to type in a few things and then sit back? Type in a few things and sit back. You've got to listen for the grumbling that's happening over there. Do you give them a scanner that scans multiple pages, or is the scanner just doing one page process? One page process. Are they having to fax things? So we laugh about that, but people are still doing this. What else? So those are just a couple of those areas that, I would say make sure that you give your staff or your assistant the best possible resources to do what they need to do. So.
And Kathleen, do you have anything else that you would like to add to that?
Yes, thank you. I think, too, that those are excellent examples, because even the things that you might not think about, like the speed of the internet that goes along with your office, that when they have 16 windows open and they're having to click back between the multiple listing service and realtor.com and they're doing your website, and that the speed of the processor in the computer, the angle of the keyboard that they have to work with, if they can work on a laptop keyboard or they need a separate keyboard, and even a headset if the assistant is doing quite a bit of phone work, so that they're not, trying to talk on the phone and type all at the same time, which is a workers' comp claim, coming, because eventually that's going to need a chiropractic appointment, So they are sometimes thought of like little things, but they make the biggest difference in the life of this person to be able to function well. And I know it is a national common thing, but we hear it all the time from assistants. Who had the idea of putting multiple people in the same office space who all talk on the phone at the same time all day long? Who had this idea? It's a very bad idea.
I know some of those people, yes.
Right, we do too. And it's very difficult. So even then, it becomes like you need Scott's headset. You need double earphone, noise-canceling microphone in order for them to make seller feedback calls, because otherwise it sounds like they're talking at the mall food court. It's got a funny ring to it. So those are definitely things that we see too. And that in terms of the training that you were talking about, Jolene, if your office can, as you train people, create a procedure manual, so that in the beginning, it's a notebook, and the assistants write down the things that they do, and then in their spare time with their extra money, as one of my old bosses used to say, they type that up, and they make it an electronic document, and they can hopefully update it as the software changes or the office creates some new policy. But then there is this something for new people to follow later that they can edit, they can adapt, but they're at least not starting from nothing all over again. And it does seem like, that's, that would be so simple, but a lot of people don't do it. So to have some sort of policy procedure manual so people also know what to expect. I've started to ask my clients, do you have Memorial Day off? And some of the assistants go, I don't know. I said, well, we should ask your agent, because sometimes people have a holiday off. And so, and if it's in their offer letter that they have Memorial Day off and you want them to work, then as an agent, you should ask really nicely about that, because that's part of the contract. So there are also those expectations that get set for a new person that they count on, that they're planning. They want to work hard for you, and then they want to be able to play hard. So those policy, procedure, office manual, offer letter, that we set up expectations that get clear. Like you were talking about in the office space, in the interview process, we recommend that candidates check out, where are you going to work? Does this fit for you? How are you going to work late at night, and how is the parking? When I was in a real estate office, it was in a big city, and so therefore what it was like after dark became an important part of the interview question. So where's the security, and how's the parking, and is it inside the building, and those kind of things. So all those things can begin to matter about how you make the transition as a new person. In my consulting division of Inspired for Results, I offer an orientation process I call mentor orientation, because I've been an assistant and I've been an agent, so I work with people one-on-one. And as assistants are more experienced, and then they also want to share more best practices, Jolene has in System Success a forum of mastermind sort of mentality for assistants to get together in groups so they can share best practices. So those kinds of ongoing training too makes a difference for whether or not this is the right fit, and that they're going to come into your culture of how you operate as a business, in addition to how they execute individual tasks.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So we went over some of the resources that are sometimes overlooked when people do hire assistants. Let's real quickly, before we move on to the next topic, dive into some of the negative effects that not providing these resources can cause.
Oh, well, it kind of goes to the point that I was going to make as far as another item, and that's about stability and security. The type of person that is going to be supporting a top producer is generally somebody who prefers more security, more stability. They are more of the person who creates the rudder. They're not the person who's going to take a lot of risk. So what happens with that person when there is a lot of risk around them and unknowns, and where they don't know where they're going, or things aren't stable or productive, they're not going to feel confident. So, and when you have the decline in confidence, then things happen like mistakes are made. They're questioning their own judgment, things like that. And so the negative things that can happen, obviously, it can be detrimental to your business. Mistakes can be made. Clients can get ticked off. You can get ticked off. They can get ticked off. I mean, it could be a train wreck. A couple of the points about creating that stability, a couple of other tips. Share your goals. It's really great to be able to share your goals with your assistants and your team. It may sound like something very minimal, but if they don't know where you're going, then they can't help you get there. But if they have an eye on that goal for the year, and they have stages of where they can actually look and see, oh, we're almost there, or how can I support that person, and how can I support the team in getting there? They will see ways of increasing production, ways of systematizing and being more efficient that you're not going to see as an agent or as a top producer, just based on personality style. I'm going to see different things than you will see, Scott. I'm going to see different things than a visionary will see. A visionary, the person who has the flag that's out in front of us. But you know what? It takes both types of personalities. Another tip, or another safety tip, I would say, is about don't talk about your money problems. And I mean, that's being very, very direct. What happens, and what I hear when I actually go out to offices, or when I'm talking to people, I'll hear about assistants hearing their agents say things like, I don't know how I'm going to pay the bills this month. Or, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm writing this check for payroll. How much is that? Or whatever it is, they're going to make it mean that they're not, like, that you're questioning their value. And it's natural for when, as a human being, when somebody's questioning your value, it's like, then why am I here? And also, it has them be insecure and has them then start questioning, should I be here? So coming back to your question, like, what are some of the things that could happen? Number one is, they're not going to help you reach your goals because they don't know what they are. Number two is, they're going to say, hey, this is an unstable environment. I can't be here. This is just too uncomfortable for me because of the unknown. And while it may not make a difference to you as a top producer, as somebody who's used to taking risks, it's unbearable and intolerable for some people to be in a risky situation, especially if you're saying, oh, well, I don't have any money in my account. Well, they don't know that you have hundreds of thousands of dollars in a different account, but you're just looking at one account. So I use that as an example, but just be aware of what you're saying, because what you say has megaphone effects to your assistant. So you want them to feel comfortable and feel stable and secure in that environment so that they can do their best for you. So that's what I would say about what could happen.
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, just to recap, it sounds like if you are providing the necessary resources, not only are they going to be able to perform at their highest standard, but they're going to feel more comfortable, they're going to feel more stable, which is going to reduce the turnover in that position for you. And you won't have to be training new people all the time and looking for new hires all the time. You'll be able to have somebody that works consistently with you to reach your goals.
Right, exactly. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the second subject that we wanted to talk about, and how you can delegate the correct work to the right people so that you can get the most out of your potential and your hire's potential.
Well, one of the first things that I would say is delegation a monologue or is it a dialogue? Most people think it's one-way communication. It is actually two-way communication. It should be a dialogue. It's funny, I had on the Forum for Extraordinary Assistants, which is a forum of top producing agents assistants, they all got together and were talking about this. And I dubbed it the drop and run. They were talking about situations where they delegated it, but then they disappeared, and so when I say dialogue, it means that you can delegate certain things to your assistant, but make sure that they get it and that you answer any other questions that they might have and be available for them if they have questions. Because the drop and run is you go by the assistant's desk, drop it on their desk, and out the door. And they're sitting there going, well, what am I supposed to do with this? And you're assuming, and it's one-way communication. So eliminate the drop and runs and be in dialogue with your assistant when you delegate. Make sure that they have the resources. Again, we go back to resources. If you delegate something to your assistant, do they have the resources to get that process complete or get that job complete? For instance, you want them to plan an event for you. Okay, it's a client appreciation event. Well, immediately I think about the resources you're going to need are who are we inviting, where is it going to be, do I have a budget, do I have your credit card authorization, are there limits on that credit card authorization, and are you going to be able to answer any questions, and how do you see this all unfolding? So you can see immediately as a detail person, I've got a lot of questions about a client appreciation event. So if you were to drop that on my desk and say, plan this appreciation dinner or appreciation event, and then off you go, it's not going to get done. Or I'm going to just wade through it and not make the appropriate decisions. So there's a lot of resources in there that as you delegate, make sure and provide them with information, resources, and feedback. Set up a time for them to check in with you. We always like to say check-ins in the morning, check-ins before you leave. Are you doing that to make sure that the delegated process is being moved forward? Because they may have just a small question that's stopping them from moving on. It may not be small to you, but it can be a roadblock to them. So they need the resources, and sometimes you're the resource. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. And I'd like to add in, I did some research for my clients and did coaching sessions on empowerment and accountability, which goes right along with this, where the statistics show if you give a project and you let the person to whom it is delegated come up with the deadline, that has the highest propensity for the deadline to keep moving. If it's just sort of human nature, nothing personal, because lots of other priorities come up in between, and so there's big chance for disappointment there. So if in the delegation there is a deadline that's assigned, but then there are checkpoints built in. That is the highest propensity and possibility for success, so that there is an expectation that there's going to be an update and certain results to happen at certain points along the way to actually get to the deadline. And to some, the drop and run, right, which is just the here's the project, gotta go, feels like the easiest way to delegate, to get this off my plate. That actual empowerment and accountability in delegation, sometimes to the supervisor, or in our situation, the lead agents, does not, it still may take you less time than if you did it yourself, but it does involve your time all along the way. So it isn't that delegation means you get rid of it. It means that you participate in it in a different way.
You know, and one of the things that you were saying about, as you know, you give them this information. Every single time you give your assistant, or you delegate something, they're filing information. They're filing information about how you like things done. What are the boundaries? What will you tolerate? What will you not tolerate? How are you dealing with these kinds of situations or those kinds of situations? So every time they're working on a transaction or a project or a phone call or even a conversation of appreciation or redirection with them, that person is creating this file. And as they go along, as time goes on and you're working with them, it's going to get easier and easier, to the degree that, you know how when people say, oh my gosh, she's like my right arm. It's like she reads my mind. Well, that comes from communication and information that's been given to them and received by them over time. It's not going to happen in 90 days, but with good communication and good delegation and that dialogue going back and forth, that file is going to get very big, where, yeah, they could actually respond exactly like you would, and you won't even be there. So, I mean, that's what everybody wants, is they want this person that's going to be their right arm and know what they need before they need it, make them look good, and let them go do what they need to do. But there's some groundwork that needs to be done. They're really good at this. That personality style is really good at maintaining this file of details, good and bad, but hopefully all the good stuff. They do know where the no-fly zones are. But, you know, it can get to that point. We've seen it over and over and over again.
So by providing a set deadline for when a project needs to be done and checkpoints that you're going to go through and make sure that they are completing each task as they work on the project, are going to allow that assistant to grow, so that then down the line they can have more freedom to make the correct choices because they know how you want them done. Correct?
Correct.
Right. It's no different than a checklist of a transaction. For a transaction, they're working on deadlines all the time. So why not have a project or something? If you're giving them something else, a marketing project, a client appreciation, give them the deadlines that they're used to working with, and then it gives them the freedom to work within that, rather than, like Kathleen said, pushing off another date. Oh, I didn't get to it, kind of thing.
Okay, so we went over how to correctly delegate to grow your staff. Now, when it comes to growing yourself, as you were going through this topic, one of the things that I was thinking about was a book that I had read, The 5 Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell. And in the first level of leadership in that book, he talks about the lowest level of leadership is just having somebody do something because they work below you. Positional leadership. So as you were talking, that was what was coming up in my mind, is you don't want the lowest level of leadership. You don't want to just set something on somebody's desk and say, get this done. You want to go to the next levels of leadership where you actually coach them on how to get it done and help them grow. So, you know, one of the ways that I would recommend growing yourself is reading that book, finding out the different levels of leadership, and really working to progress to the next level with all of your employees.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You know, when we raise our hand to hire somebody, or when we raise our hand, like you said, we grow our team, we grow ourselves. And without that, it's not going to grow. It's just going to be a frustrating situation. You know, Kathleen and I have, you know, we're so blessed to be able to see from a different point of view. It's like having people in the pool, like at water polo. You can see the players from the top, right, from the edge of the pool. You can look in and see all the players, and you can see the goalie, and you can see all this going on in the pool if you're standing on the side of the pool. But if you're in the pool, sometimes you don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
So we are really blessed to be able to stand on the side of the pool. We work with top producers, we work with top assistants, and we work with assistants who are just starting out, and we work with very seasoned people. But what I can tell you is this is a group of very smart, very creative people. And when it works really, really well. But a lot of times, like you said, we're applying the wrong kind of leadership to the assistant, and thinking that they're a certain way or that they're at a certain level. Absolutely honor the smarts that they have, because they didn't get there without some smarts. It takes a lot to really be a great assistant in real estate. They're very talented. So we see the combination of this, that talented assistant, talented agents, and it's great when it works out. It's a magic. So I would just say you're right. The different levels of leadership, absolutely.
And
so
Kathleen,
I have some resources I can offer too.
Yeah, great. I was just getting ready to ask you how you would advise agents to work on their personal growth to help their assistants have more success.
Yeah, so I'm curious to check out the book that you mentioned. I wrote that one down. And then I work sometimes with What Got You Here Won't Get You There, which is by Marshall Goldsmith. And it's more of a formula of being able to look at whatever is in your way in order to get to the next level of your own growth, with lots of different possible topics, but it has a great formula. And then I have a client that is reading this, so I'm reading it with him, which is Dave Ramsey's Entre Leadership, which is about entrepreneurial leadership. So that's another one. And then someone else had recommended, this is actually for assistants to learn too. This is Managing Up. You have this one too, right, Jolene?
Yep.
And so this was written by Jack Welch's assistant from GE. So it's not a real estate book, but it is also another way of sort of expanding how you think about your role. And I can't remember where I learned this information, but there is when you give direction, when you give sort of orders, when you delegate one-way communication, I use the term assistant generically. You know, it could be your office manager, your transaction coordinator, your listing manager, you know, all the different titles. But when you delegate from one way into your administrative staff, they learn to be order takers. And then one of the complaints that we hear is that they don't take initiative. Well, you sort of train them to just do what you tell them, and they're risk adverse, as Jolene described perfectly, because the perfect assessment results on the DISC assessment for an assistant are a high SNC, right? They're amiable, analytical. They're not risk takers. But the agents are D's and I's half the time, you know. So therefore, you know, they're on the front of the Viking ship, breaking waves, you know, out there leading the parade. But that's not who this other person is. But to be able to give them an assignment with deadlines and feedback and more information, then they become more and more confident and more competent. But it is an investment from the agent, as well as in the culture that you're building together, that everyone wants to keep growing. Mm-hmm. And Jolene and I have both experienced this in working with assistants, whether it's one-on-one or in groups, that if an assistant doesn't want to learn and grow, they take feedback and the invitation to grow as criticism.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I'm not good enough. Whatever I do is not good enough. But that's just a different way of taking in information. Agents who are committed to perpetual growth and learning are always looking for what can we do better. And that's not meant as a criticism. It's just a different way of looking at information, of always wanting to learn and grow and try something. And if the assistants, the administrative staff, will also take on sort of wearing that coat like that we're always looking for what could we do better, what could we make it more exciting, what would the customers like, what would raise our customer service, what would make something more efficient. That is a synergy in the way the team can work together. Whatever tool or resource you use that is inspiring to you, but that kind of combination together is much of the sort of energy underneath what Jolene was describing as when the teams work well together, it is fantastic. But there is this kind of passion and hunger and thirst, that they bring to it, where they want more information, they want to try something, they want it to be better. And that really does need to come from both sides. So I hope that there will be real estate administrative professionals that also get to see and hear this Google Hangout, because it is a two-way street from that perspective too, that everybody has to sort of buy into. Let's see how we can keep making it great.
Right. That's so true. So true.
Well, we've I know that we had originally wanted to go over financial stability and how the effects that your assistant and your team. If you would like, we can go into that right now, or we can save that topic for another time.
Well, one of the things I did touch on it a little bit. One is that I would just say as a safety tip, just understand that your assistants or the person in your office, the TC, your support staff, is not going to understand the level of your financials. And so any offhand comment that you make of distress, or even just a comment, just take that off the table. Work from a budget or a spending plan of what they can do for resources in the office. They're not equipped to handle your financials unless they're an office manager. So it's not the place to have those conversations, because remember, like I said, they're looking for security, stability, and whatnot. I mean, I'm happy to talk with people about what they can do to actually shore up the areas, and I've got some tips and some things that they can do so that they never end up in that position when they hire somebody, because I know it is a fear that our agents have is, what if I can't pay them 1 month? Well, I have some things that we can talk about and that you can actually do so you never even have to think about that. Or you can make choices ahead of time. You'll be ahead of the curve if the market changes. But that's what I would say about financial stability. The personality style really is they want to know that they're going to get paid. They're depending on that. And the bonus structure incentives are usually extra. So that's what I would say about that. From a growth point of view, Kathleen and I have worked on some programs that support our teams. Kathleen has a great team mentor coaching program. She's great at it because she gets both sides of that and can step into that for team growth so that they're on the same page and everybody knows what that focus is going forward. And there's the mentor orientation, which is for somebody new coming on board, but she also has the program that is for existing teams that maybe just need a little tune-up, maybe a little bit of counseling, a little bit of couples therapy. I don't know. I mean, that's what it feels like sometimes.
It does.
And then, for our assistants and for our administrative staff, a lot of times what I hear is, our agents go away to all these events, and they go and they're around other people who are doing what they're doing, and they get filled up, and they figure out how to do stuff. They share best practices. But we're here by ourselves. We're in the office. So how do we get to grow? So that's why we created the Forum for Extraordinary Assistants, which is that pseudo mastermind program, but it's a forum for them to share best practices. And the number one thing that they say in those group calls is, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one that deals with this issue with this type of client or this checklist. And so then they can create ways of supporting their agents and not have to recreate the wheel. And so, I encourage people, check us out or check out our programs, because, there's things that we can help you with, both from a team point of view, individual, assistant, professional, leadership, all of that. So check us out.
Thank you, Jolene.
All right. Yeah, thank you both so much. Before we finish this off, Jolene, why don't you tell the audience how they can get a hold of you if they would like to go over any of the information that we covered today, or if they have any questions?
Sure. You can reach me. I'll give you my email address and I'll give you my phone number. The email address is info@systemsuccess. So it's info@systemsuccess, and my phone number is 619-889-7704.
And can they reach you if they have any questions for you or would like to go over any of the programs that you offer?
Yes. So phone number, toll free, is 1-844-447-4641. A lot of fours. 844-447-4641. And it's Kathleen.metcalf@bullseyehiring.com. And it's on our website.
All right, great. Well, thank this episode of the Bullseye Hiring Hangout, and we will be back on next month, so be sure to join us guest for you, and we'll go over some more topics that will help you grow your team and grow yourself.
Wonderful.
Thank
you
you
so much, Scott.
See you next time.
Thank you.